Hello everyone. Yeah, it's been a while since we've done a Q&A type video, so I just thought I would go over a few things. Some of these aren't questions that have been asked directly, but the things that I see come up quite a lot, and I kind of felt that it would be handy to kind of have this in a video so that people had an idea of what to do rather than, like you say, having to sort of keep asking the same sort of question over and over, and kind of get more of an idea of what you can do for yourself, because I think it can be very easy to sort of do that and kind of, I don't know, it can be tricky to sort of not to know where you have to look. So I have written down the questions, so if you see me sort of leaning down like that, it's me reading this. We have also had a couple of questions, one on YouTube, one on Discord, and I will get to them. And yeah, if you've got anything that you want to know about the project, about creating your own projects, and various other things, then yeah, get in touch, and we will talk about it as best we can, and yeah, let's go from there. Okay, so let's get these questions up and let's go. So first up, do you need a degree to write? I don't think you do. I do have a little bit of a reservation, because I do think some people can be very sort of, I won't say very, that's a bit harsh, but can be snobbish about this idea that, oh, you don't need creative writing, like lessons, you don't need structure, you don't need rules, blah blah blah. And it's true to an extent, but equally I do think kind of learning how the structure works, learning how to take feedback from people, learning how to work with people, I do think a lot of that I got from my degree. And I mean, for those of you who don't know, I studied English and Media at Chichester. Wonderful 3 years of my life, great place to be in that time, and totally recommend going down there. And I think this is the thing, I think you learn these things, and I think that environment was in particular fantastic for it. Do you necessarily need a university for that? No, of course not. There are plenty of writers' retreats and courses. I think there's ones in Norwich, there's ones all over. I think what is important is to get feedback, to get the right approach to feedback, and I mean, to have kind of the self-critical faculty, but also to not kind of go full imposter syndrome either. Like, everything's a balance. That's what I'll say on that for now. Can you write with a full-time job? Absolutely. I think it is something that requires, again, you have to sort of know how to use your time. So, for example, if you get the bus to work, have a pad and pen in your bag, because ideas can come at any time, and often they will come at a point where you're not really concentrating on stuff, and it's there because you can always then write it up later. I mean, okay, it's been a while since I've had like a proper sort of job, but I do other things between writing, and I think it is just finding the time, being disciplined, being someone who sort of goes, right, I'm going to do this amount now. And I think if you can channel yourself, if you can find a routine that works for you. So I personally like to write in my room, I like to sort of get on with it, and that's great. Some people can do that in cafes, I personally can't, but find the routine that works for you. What I will say is, and like again, some people still say this idea of, oh, well, I don't need rules. Well, good for you, but plenty of people do struggle with blocks. They do struggle with getting stuff down, so having structure is not the worst thing in the world. All I'm going to say on that. Okay, where do I find artists? This kind of ties in with like the last question we're going to talk about. So there are a lot of artists out there. I mean, recently, something that I think a lot of people have had to deal with recently are these kind of spam things, where someone gets into your direct messages and they say the nicest things, and they ask questions, and it's inevitably, it builds up to them trying to like get you to commission them. And what's really annoying is sometimes if you sort of stop them in the middle of the spiel and you want to make clear, no, I'm not going to just do this just because, you know, you've kind of made your way in here. And it's so tricky because now, if you want to contact someone saying that you want work from them, I think the easiest thing to do now is look people up on their social media. I mean, some people will have contact forms, they will have ways that you can do it so that you can do it in a way that's comfortable for them. I think the big thing is, but you know, look for the people that suit the style, because it's not just as simple as artists, because there's a lot of artists out there. There's some fantastic ones, but I mean, to give you an idea, Gray of PTA is very different from Dan Butcher, is very different from Susie Gander. They're all fantastic artists, but you know, what you want may not be the same as those particular styles, and that's okay. But I would say be open-minded, look at what someone's charging. Also, we've talked about this before, but I'm going to say this as well. Don't sort of try and lowball a person. I don't think that's a good thing. Be upfront if you can't afford something, but don't sort of say, oh, you're too expensive. If you can't afford it, it's fine. You know, if you can't afford something, you can't afford it. But then sort of trying to project that onto someone else, that's not on. I mean, equally with artists, if you can offer flexibility in terms of installment payments, if you can sort of work with people, that's awesome. I think there has to be a balance, and I think with artists, I think it's very important to be aware of your worth. Like, put your prices in, make sure they're clear. I think that's a big thing, and like, I mean, obviously, make people aware of what you won't do, because that's totally fair enough. I don't think anyone's going to have a go at you with that. But equally, say for example, you charge extra for extra detail, something like that, make it clear, because that way you don't get any issues with people, and you know, just try and put the info there as much as possible, because you can sometimes get this kind of push and pull with people. And I think it's easier if you just, you know what someone charges, you know how to pay for it, and you can kind of do it with as little a process as possible. I think works well for everyone. Let's see. Where are the original films? Okay, this is one that I've seen crop up from a few things, and I've got to tell you, the original stuff is more out there than it's ever been. So, to give you an idea, I put reviews on Patreon now. I used to do reviews on this channel. The reason I stopped is that the views were absolute nothing. Like I say, even for kind of what we do sometimes. And I do think this channel is better off being for everyone, because originally it was in my name and I had to change it, because it's so important to make it clear that this is a project that isn't just me, and that's why we do, like, say, the Meet the Team videos, etc. But yeah, I mean, you've only got to look at like all the different reviewers out there, and this is the thing. This is why I think when people get snippy about critics, I think what critics can offer are things that you wouldn't have considered, and sort of saying, have a look at this thing you haven't thought about. Oh, by the way, this is amazing, because there is stuff that I've discovered through reviews that I would not have thought of, and in some cases are my favourite. So, for example, Parasite I learned about through video reviewers and was absolutely incredible. So I would say, just look for stuff. I mean, Hundreds of Beavers, there's all kinds of independent animation out there, there's all kinds of like independent production people, so like Cheeseman, for example, doing Super Happy Fun Time, which was very enjoyable. No, not Super Happy Kill Time, so I've got the name wrong, but they're great. They are great. Sorry. And yeah, that's what I've got to say. I would say, get looking. Like, there are independent cinemas. There are places you can go. I mean, like I say, online, etc. They're out there. They're out there. Look it up. Support where you can. I'm like, don't get me wrong. And just to be clear, this is not a you can't watch Sonic, you can't watch Marvel, you can't watch Netflix. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is, rather than moan about it, I mean, the fact that we've had Sinners come out, which is totally original, that is okay, some people can say, oh, well, it's a bit like, like, yeah, but it's also fantastic. So, leaving that there. Okay, so we're now going to get to the couple of questions that have been submitted to me, because I asked across various platforms, and the first one is by the absolutely awesome IWFan53. So for those of you who don't know, and I will link to our trailer at the end, he's been doing a short story series with an alternate Perfect Platinum, and the idea being, what if Perfect Platinum in effect turned good? There's more to it than that, and it's a really well done series, and it's something that I would never have thought of, which is why I think fan projects are amazing, because it's totally different angle. Wouldn't have thought of it, gotta be honest, probably wouldn't have pursued it, but I love that he has. I love how they've run with it and just created this fantastic series, so please read it. Yeah, so question: if Reynard City Chronicles was an even 10 issues long, what story from the first run / new story / existing story would you want to make longer in order to fill that extra issue? Now that is a really, really good question, and I wanted to kind of wait until this video before I kind of settled on a final answer, because there's a few like angles I could take with this. So for example, I do really like, there's a couple of one-off stories in the original webcomic that I like doing. So Out of Shape, which Susie's art on that is absolutely fantastic, and it would be hard to kind of match that. But the energy of it, the kind of the twists in it, the weird imagery, I think it's so well done. And Chemic Owl and Shade-O-Matic as villains are kind of cool extra touches, and I just really like them. I mean, there's also a fair argument of maybe doing a bit more in terms of supporting characters. So could have established Mark more, could have established Rokol or Anti more, and so there's an argument for that. Maybe, like as I say, the Balloon Boy short could have been a full issue. That's valid. I think all of those, I think, are reasonable things, and I think it kind of comes down to kind of feedback we've been getting, because I think the biggest note, or the most kind of oft-repeated note that I got, was that kind of issue 1 was a bit overwhelming. There was a lot going on and a lot kind of crammed into that first issue, and in retrospect I think that's fair. So whilst it's a bit of a cheat in the context of this question, I think in terms of what I personally would have done in hindsight, was make the first issue a 2-parter. So there you go. And Boyhead on YouTube, thank you very much for getting involved. Yes, I have a question. How does it take to find such wondrous support on your comics? How? Well, this is a big question. Again, this kind of goes into the where do you find artists thing. And I think in both cases, it's not something that happens overnight. And it is about kind of building relationships with people, is about kind of learning a process for people to work with. And the balance that always needs to be tweaked is what you want, what the audience wants, and what the artist wants. Because I have a story I want to tell, audiences have certain expectations, artists want some ability to create and express for themselves. Now, how do you balance it so that, say, I can tell the story I want to tell, the audience that's getting very excited for the story that's come gets what they want, but an artist also has kind of room to kind of put what they want into it as well, and it isn't just a machine, and it isn't just something that, you know, you're not being sort of put in a rigid formula. So you have to kind of work on that. I mean, in terms of, you know, getting support, I mean, it is a matter of being on the platforms. It's a matter of giving people things for them to work. So my mum and my dad gave me two bits of advice, and I think they kind of apply to this pretty well, and I think they're worth thinking about fully. So my dad, before he ran his business, he used to work in the East End in London, so kind of Cockney area. I mean, you know, there's kind of the infamous kind of Archers area and what have you. Google it. And he was given this specific bit of advice, which is never cry stinking fish. Now, what does that mean? Now, I think I've covered this before, but in case you're not aware of this phrase and what this phrase means, it basically means don't kind of project negativity, because I see this sometimes with people. So they'll call themselves an aspiring artist. It's like, no, you're making art, you're an artist. Or they'll do something down like, oh, I can't draw this, or oh, I have issues with this. And I mean, being able to talk and say, look, I'm having a tough time mentally, yes, that's important. This is not what I mean. Before anyone sort of says, like, we're not going full toxic positive here, don't worry. But what I will say is there's a difference between like BS and being positive. So the difference between self-confidence and arrogance. Now, self-confident means you put something out there, you believe in it, you want people to see it, and that's good, that's positive. I mean, arrogant is saying, oh, what these people over there make is rubbish, I am so much better than that. It's like, no. Don't do that. And especially, I would say this, don't, like, say, like, bash on the creator or anything like that. It's not on, people can see it, it's not healthy. And again, this ties into this, which is, you know, don't focus on the negativity, focus on what is it that you're offering. And I think that's very important. And the other side of it, which I'm going to talk about, is from a phrase my mum uses, and it's something I think about quite a lot, and I think it's something that is always worth thinking about, not just in terms of social media, but in terms of being at a convention, in terms of getting out there with people, because obviously, you know, being sociable isn't easy, and I get this. But she does say something very clear, which is, to have a friend, you've got to be a friend. So, with this kind of thing, like, developing groups takes time, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm perfect on this, mistakes have been made, and I wouldn't have rebooted the comic if that were the case, you know. Total hands up, it's fair enough. And this is the thing, I'm incredibly grateful that I've had people like Susie, Dan, John, Nicholas, Ellie, Susie, Jed, you know, lots of people who've kind of gone through this and sort of supported me, because it's not always been easy, and I don't want to kind of get into the personal side of it, but there have been like things to deal with. And I think the thing is, what I think is really important is, if someone backs you, say thank you. And I've seen, and I think most important is, like, obviously if someone gives you a massive donation, then, you know, do what you can and say, you've been absolutely amazing, that's fantastic. But that, you know, but also try and be positive with people who donate £2, who donate £1, who share your links. Like, it's all important, and it's all something to be grateful for, and nobody owes you anything. That's I mean, that's a big thing. Like, I know it's a tough time at the minute. I know it's not always easy to be, so don't, you know, someone like drops out on something or whatever, you know, it's like, it can happen. But I think our support, like the community we've had, so I want to give a big shout out, for example, like Of Sunshine and Rain, like messaging the other day, and it's like, oh, what can I do to, you know, help you hit your target, you know, we need to get this out there. And that's absolutely right, and I'm really, really chuffed that there are people that want us to do well, that want us to succeed, that want us to get to the points that we want to get to. But like I say, it's a constant thing. It's about kind of making sure that people know that they're valued, to kind of keep in touch with people, to try and, if someone sort of asks you, what's going on with this, what's going on with that, like, you try and keep them up to date, you try and play fair, because obviously that's a big thing, I think, with some crowdfunders. Things can go wrong, things can get delayed, it happens, but it's really important that you let people know, and this is why, as much as possible, I've learned, just try and set reasonable deadlines. Stuff can go wrong, stuff can get delayed, but just try and play fair with people, and I think, as much as possible, I want to kind of communicate with people, be thankful, be part of the conversation, but try as much as possible to kind of credit people. And I think, in terms of support, because again, this idea to have a friend, you've got to be a friend, donate to other people's crowdfunds. Like, as I say, even if it's a quid here or there, donate to other people's crowdfunds. Share other people's links. Be engaged. It's called social media. It's not do everything for yourself media, because if you're not prepared to share other people, why should they be prepared to share you? You know that they've worked hard, and and as much as possible, kind of work with people. This is why, for example, things like having guest judges for Fan Art Friday is really good, because you can bring in people that you wouldn't otherwise bring in. But also, I mean, it's quite handy in terms of the contest, because you can then say, look, there's no bias here. I've brought someone in on the outside who is picking something because they like the thing they've picked. And I think it's very important to kind of try and maintain these things, to try and keep in touch with people. And I realise it can be difficult, and you do have to kind of ride the line, so you're not messaging people so much you bug them, but also you want to make people aware as well, because sometimes, like, you can, like, promote stuff and get it out there as much as you can, and there'll still be people who kind of ask, when's the deadline, when's this, and it's like, the information's there. And I think, as I say, you want to kind of support people as much as possible and kind of give them as much as you can. And it's a process. It's always a process. So finding out what works for people, what doesn't, and and like you say, just making people aware that if they've done an incredible thing for you, you try and do as much back for them as well. So anyway, I think that pretty much covers everything. I would love to do more of these. If there's any questions you can think of that have either come from this, or you're working on a project and you've got questions, or anything sort of creative that's come from this, or from the comic itself, I think so long as the question isn't too spoilery or too personal, like, I reserve the right to say this isn't an appropriate question. Like, I reserve the right, as much as possible, I will answer what I can answer, if that makes sense. But anyway, thank you so much, guys, and, well, I say guys, people in general, because I don't, let's all be awesome together. Yeah, I'm so great, and it's something, as I say, been working on this for like 18 years now, and we're coming up to the end, and I'm not going to lie, I am both incredibly excited and absolutely nerve-wracked, because, we are working on the final issue, and I really, really want to be a part of it, because, like I said, just to say, I don't want to say I want to deliver like this, but because Blue Ike is working very hard, Jim Furno, the voice actors, they're working very hard on animation. Wow, it's a big thing. It is so big, and another big question is, what we're doing in the future, and I think I probably would want to sort of do a separate video on that, because I think there's some other, like, really big things to say. But the basic level is, you're going to see in a minute, our credits, where you can go to support us, whatever. And the simple part of it is, if you buy the comics, if you subscribe to the videos, if you share it, if you get it out there, we can do more. It's as simple as that. Like as I say, it's, you know, we're doing what we can with what we've been given, and obviously with the people who've paid for the go-go and all the rest of it. I'm super grateful for what you've put in, but obviously the more you can help, the better. Much love. Bye. Your call is coming to us. Much love. Bye.
Well, howdy folks, this here is Lenore Zan, aka Rogue of the X-Men. That's right, and I'm coming to you today from Providence, Rhode Island to say thank you so much to everybody who contributed to Reynard City. I think that beautiful show deserves a lot of attention and success. And in particular, I want to say thank you to the backers. That would be Rev 701, Sios the Spaniel, Joe the English Otter, and Van Hikari. And then as well, we'd like to say thank you to Nicholas, Joe Draco Pedersen, Emily Bandicoot, Eli Reynard, Delisle La Fortune, and the entire Reynard City creative team. So keep on creating, folks, and I hope to meet y'all in the future.